Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to the channel or the podcast for your listen. On today's episode, I'm going to describe 8 diet mistakes that are making you fat. So essentially, if you're someone who's tried to lose the same 10 pounds 10 times over, you're not making any progress, it's like you're making at least one of these 8 mistakes which I'm going to describe. So essentially, we're going to go through what the 8 mistakes are and then what you need to do instead so you can lose body fat while maintaining muscle mass. That is key. For anyone who does not know me, my name is Adrian McDonnell. I'm a full-time online health and fitness coach, and we specialise helping busy working professionals over the age of 30 drop up to 10 kilos of body fat in as little as 90 days. Okay, so let's go into it. Mistake number one is you're not planning your day. So one of our clients, Daniel, he was a chronic fat dieter for up to 8 years. And inside his first 15 weeks when he worked with us, he lost almost 15 kilos. One of the biggest changes he made was just planning tomorrow today. So when I speak about planning tomorrow today, it doesn't mean that you need to have all your meals prepped or all your food cooked for the week. What it does mean is that you need to know what foods you're going to be consuming at certain times of the day. So for example, if you're a busy working professional and you know that tomorrow for breakfast you're going to have your overnight oats, you know for lunchtime there's a healthy cafe that you can go to that sells very lean, nutrient dense chicken Caesar salad, and you know for dinner it's going to be, maybe a steak stir fry, and for your snacks in between it's going to be Greek yogurt, it's going to be protein, it's going to be some Brazil nuts. That's planning tomorrow today. Whereas where a lot of people do is they're reactive. Okay, you eat when you're hungry based on intuition, how you're feeling. So for example, you might have a breakfast in the morning, it could be something like cereal. Then you're on the road, you're quite hungry, you stop into a filling station, you get something like a chicken fitter roll, you get a bar of chocolate, you get some potatoes, and you're eating reactively rather than proactively. So if you're serious about dropping body fat, one of the best habits that you can implement is just plan tomorrow today. Plan your food today, make sure you know what to eat at least one day in advance. Okay, mistake number two, drinking your calories. So there's two sides to this. First of all, is that just drinking your calories from non-nutrient dense sources. So let's just say, for example, you go to Starbucks and you get something like a Frappuccino. Sure, you might have caffeine in it, but you also have about 300 to 400 calories. It's almost like a milkshake with some coffee in it. I just generally do not recommend drinking your calories. Other things to look out for are things like if you have coffee and you drink milk in it, 100 milliliters of milk contains 64 calories. Fruit juices, they can be quite calorie dense as well, so just be careful of that. But then the problem number two is that when you're trying to lose weight, the goal should be to eat as much food as possible while saving your calories and staying as full as possible. The problem when you drink your calories is that drinking your food and drinking your calories is not nearly as satiating as eating a meal. So if you're someone who wants to gain muscle, I actually might recommend that you drink some of your calories. You have a protein shake with some chopped up banana, peanut butter, and maybe some oats. But if you want to lose body fat, it's not very good from a satiety standpoint that if you drink your calories rather than eat your calories. So generally speaking, I recommend do not drink your calories and try to eat your calories, and that's another mistake to avoid. Now this will lead us on nicely to mistake number three, not tracking your calories. So the number one thing for fat loss is going to be calories in, calories out. If you have no idea how many calories you're actually consuming on a daily basis, it's very hard to know what adjustments, if any, you need to make. And even a lot of research shows that even like just the matter of keeping a food diary, not even tracking your calories using an app like MyFitnessPal, but even just keeping a food diary, it'll make you more aware and make you more accountable of your food choices. Now I discovered this first of all the hard way because I claimed to be eating healthy but I wasn't losing body fat back in the day. One of the reasons was because nearly every day before work when I was working in a local store, I would have something called chocolate muju milk, and I'd also have a pack of chocolate peanuts. Now this contains, high protein instead on the packet, but the thing I did not realize is it also contained up to 1200 calories. That's the equivalent to 4 meals. So when I actually build my intuition, build my education, build my knowledge around how many calories are in certain foods, it just allowed me to make better food choices. And for a lot of people, they're like, look, tracking calories is hard. I get it. Look, you don't need to do it for a lifetime. But once you build up the education, once you build up the knowledge by actually tracking your calories, what I recommend for at least 30 days, it will just give you more understanding of actually how many calories are in certain foods. But also, like, people think that it's actually obsessive, but I would actually argue that it's more educational. You are going to be eating food for the rest of your life. And until you're aware that, okay, this packet of peanuts has got 550 calories for 100 grams. But on the flip side, it's like, look, I can have 500 grams of strawberries and it's only 160 calories. It would actually make you more aware of volume eating, that you can eat a lot of certain foods for very few calories, and you can eat a small amount of other foods for a very high amount of calories. So again, you need to earn the right, in my opinion at least, to get to a point where you don't need to track your calories. That's, in my opinion, that's the equivalent to getting a college degree, where you don't just go to college on day one and get your degree. You earn the right to get your degree, and when you have your degree for a lifestyle degree in nutrition, in my opinion, that's where you're at a point where you're able to actually look the way you want to look, feel the way you want to feel without having to track your calories. However, a lot of people just want to skip this step and like just want to lose body fat, but you don't want to build the education and the knowledge. So what I recommend and what we recommend for a client is track your calories for at least 30 days. That will build your foundation, build your knowledge, and make you more aware of your food choices. Okay, mistake number 4 is consuming too many hyper palatable foods. So I was in Starbucks one morning getting an Americano, and on the side they had like a piece of chocolate cake. So I looked at the chocolate cake, calories right next to it. I could not believe my eyes. Like one small serving of cake had 800 calories. Okay, 800 calories. Like that's the equivalent of 2 full meals. So what I would say there is that hyper palatable foods, they're designed and they're manufactured in such a way to be addictive, to get you to want to eat more. You just need to think about it now. The industry, the food industry, they want you to be fat. They want you to come back to buy more, to eat more of these hyper palatable foods because they're so hard to resist once you consume them. I'm no different to you. It's like if I get my hands on chocolate, or if I get a taste of ice cream, it's like I want the full bar, or I want the full box, or I want the full tub. So that's why you need to be very careful with consuming hyper palatable foods. I'm not saying you need to cut them out completely, but you need to be very mindful of your portion sizes. The reason being is because, interesting enough, hyper palatable foods, they tend to be devoid of 3 things which will help keep you fuller for longer: protein, fiber, and water. Okay, so they typically, instead, hyperpalatable foods tend to be quite high in sugar, they tend to be quite high in fat, and quite high in salt. When you combine those 3 things, along with the low protein, low fiber, and low water intake, that's a recipe for overeating. So I just would say there, be very careful of not consuming too many hyperpalatable foods, because otherwise you're just going to go way over your daily calories. Now, mistake number 5 is not tracking your condiments, your oils, or your dressing. So this is something that I myself found out the hard way. It's like sometimes when I would cook a stir fry, I'd forget that I cooked it in olive oil. 1 tablespoon of olive oil contains 120 calories. Other things to keep an eye on are, let's just say, for example, you like some sourdough bread and you put some Kerrygold butter on this. Kerrygold butter, I mean, look, it's a form of saturated fat, but the problem is butter is so calorie dense that even if you have a small serving of butter, that can easily be 100 to 200 calories. And then for other people, it's like, okay, I went for lunch, I got this healthy Caesar salad, but you forgot to realize that the Caesar salad dressing is up to 200 to 300 calories. Just be very mindful of like condiments, oils, and dressing, and make sure you account for them in your food diary, because otherwise they can easily add up to 300-400 calories off your daily total intake. Okay, mistake number 6 is not directly but indirect diet mistakes to avoid, and that is not lifting weights. Simply put, the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn while resting. And if you do not resistance training, you do not do any strength training, you're essentially, and you just do too much cardio, you're going to slow down your metabolism. And if you slow down your metabolism, a slower metabolism means that you have the potential to eat less food and you're going to be more liable to gain weight. So above all else, if there's any one form of activity I recommend anyone to do, it's going to be resistance training. Strength training is going to be the foundation of everything, which is why it's super important you do some resistance training so you can build more muscle and speed up your metabolism. Okay, second last mistake to avoid is you suffer from the weekend warrior syndrome. What is the weekend warrior syndrome? Whereby you essentially, you eat healthy Monday to Friday, but then you completely binge eat or you blow your diet at the weekend. Imagine that you're in a 300 calorie deficit from Monday to Friday. So come Friday evening, you save up to 1,500 calories. However, if you go for drinks on Saturday and you go for a meal out, you can very easily overconsume and eat an extra 1,500 calories without even realizing, because I would argue that it's very difficult nowadays to go to a restaurant and not get a meal that's under 1,000 calories for the most part. And then it's like, let's just say that you have 4 pints of Guinness, okay, that's going to be an extra 1,000 calories easily. So you can eat healthy Monday to Friday and then blow all your protein in the weekend, and then as a result of this, not lose body fat. Does that mean you need to be a hermit? Does that mean you can't socialize, you can't have a bit of fun? Absolutely not. But it means you need to be more strategic with your calories. Something we coach our clients on is something what we call calorie banking, whereby essentially you cut some of your calories during the week so you can overconsume the weekend. So what I like to do is to tell our clients is look at your calories from a weekly instead of a daily point of view. So let's just say, for example, you're consuming 2,000 calories a day. Times 7 days a week, that's going to be 14,000 calories over the course of the week. So knowing that to be true, then let's just say that you know that you're going to be consuming 3,000 calories on Saturday. That means that for the other 6 days of the week, okay, 14,000 minus 3,000 leaves you with 11,000 calories. So once you stay within your calories over those 6 days, okay, this will still essentially allow you to overconsume on some days, but once you're in that weekly calorie deficit, that is going to be the most important thing. Do not suffer from the weekend warrior syndrome. Make sure you calorie bank. Make sure, again, probably going back to point number 1, you plan your day, you plan your week in advance so you can actually account for this. Okay, and finally, the last mistake is that you have a weak mindset or even all or nothing mindset. I used to be of the opinion that I need to be perfect to lose body fat. The problem is that I essentially label foods as good or bad. So these foods are good, these foods are bad. With that mentality though, that's meant that whenever I had a quote unquote a bad food, my mentality is I've already had a bad food. God knows when I'm going to have this food again. And I just tend to binge eat, I tend to overeat and just like way over consume my calories. And this actually came from, I did 75 hard challenge before where essentially you need to follow a diet with no cheat meals. And I cut out all my favorite foods, okay, until one day I forgot to do one thing. And the first thing that I did was I got so fed up, I just said, F this. And I had like an unintended or unplanned 10,000 calorie challenge. So like, look, I know I'm a health and fitness coach. I know I want to eat more, nutrient dense foods, eat more protein, eat more fiber, all the good stuff. But at the end of the day, you do not need to be perfect doing this. Just aim for progression rather than trying to be perfect. So for example, one of our clients tonight, he's working with us at the moment, and he used to have that all or nothing mindset too, where he was telling us that essentially if he went out at the weekends, we kind of suffer from the weekend warrior syndrome. If he went for drinks on say a Saturday, Sunday he was rolled off. It was takeaway, it was comfort food, it was absolutely just lying in bed. Monday then he felt like garbage, he didn't get his workout in, he didn't feel good. And it was nearly Tuesday or Wednesday by the time that he actually came around to himself again. And then all of a sudden the weekend is upon him and he just like repeated this cycle. So look, you do not need to be perfect, you just need to aim for making progress. And what I generally recommend with the mindset side is aim for the 80-20 or 90-10 principle, that 80% of your calories are single ingredient whole foods, or up to 90%, and the other 10 to 20% are discretionary calories or more processed foods. This would essentially mean, and like my biggest game changer was, I used to label bread as bad, but then when I started eating bread and actually losing body fat, I was like, whoa, I can actually eat carbohydrates, I can eat bread, I can still lose body fat. But that was like a big game changer for me, because I was really afraid to eat carbohydrates when I was younger. But when you have that mind that there's no such thing as like good or bad food per se, but rather your perception of it. And if most of your calories are coming from single ingredient whole foods, that is going to be the most important thing. If you actually want to drop body fat, then do the opposite of these. So rather than not plan your day, plan your day. Okay, rather than drinking your calories, do not drink your calories, or at least not often. Okay, track your calories or keep a food diary. Make sure that you do not overconsume hyper-palatable foods. Track your condiments, track your oils, track your dressing. Make sure you're lifting weight. Make sure that you calorie bank for the weekend if you have a bit more of an active social life, and do not have an all or nothing mindset. The three big things we coach our clients on using our metabolic requirement diet are eating mostly single ingredient whole foods, at least 80% of the time, having a plant and a protein at every single meal, and staying within your calories, okay? And if you do those three things, this means that you can still have a bit of fun, you can still have a bit of flexibility, and still drop body fat. If that is something you want help with, make sure first of all that you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on our uploads, whether it's on YouTube or on podcasts. And if you want more one-to-one customized coaching with my team and I, where we essentially lay out the game plan for you so it eliminates all the guesswork, I will post a link in my bio for my application form where you can schedule a call with me or my team and we can see if we can help. All right, but that is all for this episode. I hope you did enjoy, and we'll catch you in the next one.